Hello, everybody, and welcome back to 20 Somethings TV. I am your host, and I'm here with our lovely friends, Matt, Anthony, Stevie, Ellie, and Jamie. And kind of bouncing off of our last group, we do also want to follow up on that Free Britney story and the end of her conservatorship. For those of you who weren't watching last segment, Britney Spears' conservatorship has just been kind of like ended by a judge saying it's no longer needed after 13 years. How do we feel, group? We talked about this a little bit early on. Following up, what are our thoughts?
Finally, again, like we touched on this earlier when it wasn't completed, but it was just a long overdue process, and it's just so good to finally see her happy and smiling and doing whatever she wants, whenever she wants, with whoever she wants. It's just so good to see and hear her being able to post what she wants too, especially awesome.
Yeah, it must feel.
You can go.
I was just gonna say it must feel so good for her to finally be free after like 14 plus years of having complete control over her own life. Like her text messages monitored, she couldn't hang out with certain people she wanted to, and I wonder how she's transitioning to having every aspect of her life controlled to just being free.
It must have been exciting for her too, because she wasn't even at the hearing on Friday, so probably hearing the news was probably extremely exciting for her.
I saw one of her Instagram posts. She said, "What an amazing weekend! I felt like I was on cloud nine the whole time. I actually got my first glass of champagne at the most beautiful restaurant I've ever seen last night. I'm celebrating my freedom and my birthday for the next 2 months. I mean, after 13 years, I think I've waited long enough." Like I cannot imagine going that long without like actually being able to, I guess, kind of like enjoy your life because it's not yours to control. I don't even know what the first thing I'd want to do would be. What do y'all think?
I can only imagine there's just a huge sense of relief after her father controlled her life for that long. I think we can all agree Jamie Spears is a bit of a creep for the lengths that he went to. The only thing that bothers me is that he's still getting to settle financial deals for her, at least for a little while. The judge ruled that. I find that a bit odd. I kind of just want him out of my life at this point. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I know that her attorney, or like the family's attorney, still has some power. I think his name's John Zabel. He still has some power as it's like transitioning, but I think eventually Brittany's going to be able to get control of most of her assets, which is good.
And her body now again, which is really cool. I feel like she has, when she says like she's waited long enough, like I don't know exactly how long she's been wanting to have another child, but like they kind of mentioned in the last group, she's 39 now. Like obviously she's very still much Britney Spears in a sense that like she's so full of life and so loving and um, America's sweetheart all over again. But I feel like that'd be one of the worst parts for myself is like not being able to control like my own body, like that also being like kind of like ordered around for me.
To answer Stevie's question about having the father still in her life, kind of, if I was Brittany, like, and I was put through the situation, I would do absolutely everything in my power to get that man nowhere near me, and no matter what, I would still go to court and try to fight that, so it has nothing to do with my life. And I feel like Brittany wants the same, but as of right now, because she just had to go through that trial, I feel like she just wants a break from everything, just to live and then deal with that in a later due process.
She's got lots of time to catch up on. I don't think I would want him in my life just because I feel like at a certain point, maybe at the beginning, there were like better intentions. I'm not sure. But like after 13 years, like she's been such a different person for so long. She's very much not the same person she was 13 years ago. And I don't think that like anybody with my best interest at heart would let it continue for as long.
Well, one thing that people like I honestly just thought of this. It's like I feel like terrible because during this like time, this 13 years, like everybody, and like, including myself, was always slandering on Brittany for like being like a crazy drug addict. Yet we were all like behind the scenes on what was actually going on and had no idea. And I know like myself now knowing the situation that has happened, I feel like a complete idiot. No, I just feel bad that for 13 years she was getting slandered by people behind the internet, but even though they didn't know what was going on in the slightest.
But she was only really like she didn't really have control of her image either. You know, like she couldn't really speak for herself.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's
yeah.
my point.
Like it's crazy how the world like was able to like hold on to that like picture of her for so long because she was so like out of control of her like narrative.
I mean, it's even sad to think about it because the whole reason she was in the conservatorship could have been because her father was controlling from the very beginning. I mean, just to control somebody's life for 14 years, somebody that you should care about because they're your child. It's insane to me.
Does not make sense. There are lots of things going on right now in the world that, I don't know, make you kind of question the integrity of certain establishments. Another thing that's happening right now, which kind of got wrapped up, is at Howard University. Students had to protest living in tents for over a month because their dorms were full of mold, rats, flooding, and other issues across many residential halls. So they slept in tents starting on the 25th of October, and that was like wrapped up, I think, either yesterday or the day before. As college students, how do y'all feel about that if you presented the school with like these issues?
I think it's ridiculous that it took so long for them to respond, for the administration to respond to that, especially because a student initially reported that mold was growing on her ceiling, and she was having an allergic reaction to that, and it took them like months to not even respond to it.
It wasn't just one dorm either that had mold. I was reading today that was like 38 dorms were confirmed had mold, and they didn't even look at the other ones. Like, you don't think after the first 4, 5 that you check the rest of the dorms and make sure this wasn't a spreading thing? Like, come on now.
I mean, and this kind of stuff doesn't pop up out of nowhere. I mean, roaches and mold takes a while. So they've just been ignoring the problem for years.
Like rats. Like how can you like I know there's like a joke at URI that there's like the sophomore slums, you know, but it's like
they're not that bad.
I don't know. I feel like if there are all these students like in tents outside, like basically being like, we can't live here. It's better to live in the street, like on the sidewalk. There should have been a response like day one. On top of that, I was reading. Oh wait, you go ahead, Matt.
I was just like, going off what you said. Like, I know when I was a freshman, like all my friends, we all joked about like how bad our dorms were, and like we would complain about them all the time. But like when you look at it like this, like we didn't have rats, mold, flooding in our dorms. Ours were like luxuries compared to that. And for like a university that as prestigious as Howard is having those problems is just like ridiculous. And the fact again that it took 34 days, that long, for students to camp outside in tents just to get a point across and finally like make some progress is just ridiculous.
I was reading something by one of the students who was basically talking about how like now that it is kind of resolved, they're like talking to the school now and like actually getting some of their demands met, like they can go back to being full-time students. Like, can you imagine like yourself right now doing classes full-time while also trying to like be an activist and like protest for housing for like your fellow college students? Like they're having to like kind of juggle both of these roles at the same time. And she was like, I'm just glad that now I can go back to 20-somethings in a tent. Yeah. I don't know how good that would go. But she said she was glad that she could just go back to living like a normal college life. That's something I didn't really think about.
I feel bad too, because I feel like they were like were being forced into being an activist. I feel like most of those people like wouldn't have wanted to done that. They would have rather done much better things with their times. But instead, they had to go, like I said earlier, camp in a tent because they can't live in a dorm and do their homework.
Yeah, if you're paying so much for higher education and housing, I feel like you should have a right to a safe living environment that you don't have to worry about like mold and animal infestations. That's just crazy.
I think that the school should have accommodated the students like way earlier if there was like a nearby hotel or something like that. Like the fact that they even had to protest by sleeping in the street, like crazy.
They also, I was reading an article, and they said that they still haven't, well, they haven't released like the specific details about it, and like or like how they resolved it. But they said the students were happy. But I'm like kind of concerned almost that like they kind of just said that just so the students would stop protesting and kind of like shut them up. But
Like
again,
they've made claims on what they're gonna do, and the general public doesn't know what they are yet. So
yeah,
like they could have told students one thing and then not.
go,
That's that kind of like what you're?
yeah.
I didn't think about that. That's interesting.
I
Just
think
like
at
one
the
of
very
popped
sorry.
in my mind. Like you're good.
I think at the very least they should refund some of their money. I mean, 34 days in a tent is ridiculous, and the fact that they were paying for housing during that time it's unacceptable on the school's behalf. And I also think it's ridiculous they haven't canceled the contract with the cleaning company that takes care of the dorms yet. 4,500 students have signed a petition to cancel that contract, and nothing's been done about it yet. So
That's ridiculous.
what's to say the problem won't come back?
At the very least, they should literally get all their money back for housing, for literally, or for paying for housing and then literally being homeless for a month, a little more than a month.
Like mold is a bad issue, but like flooding, like if you're concerned about like going to sleep and then waking up like with there like a foot of water in your hallway, like that's not a sustainable like I don't know environment for education, you know?
I'm gonna be honest, this could look a little joke here, but I'd much rather step in like an inch of water than see two giant rats.
Literally.
Oh my god. I would have just left the school. I probably would have dropped out. I do not love rats.
And think about all the diseases that come with rats. I mean, that's a liability.
Yeah.
Rummaging through your clothes. You have food in there that you probably ate. They might have touched it or something. Oh god.
Home away from home, you know. I'm glad that hopefully the school does something about it. But we'll have to keep up with the story and keep y'all posted. Lastly, on a bit of it feels satirical, but it's not satirical note. Ted Cruz has a big issue with Big Bird and the fact that he got his COVID vaccine. The Muppet is an advocate for children now 5 to 11 able to get COVID vaccines that have been mandated by the FDA. And Ted Cruz says that it is propaganda, evil propaganda. I can't make this up, folks. And a lot of people agree. 15.5 thousand likes and over 6,000 retweets or quote tweets. So, yeah.
I wrote in my research that in past years we've been talking about like world hunger being a main problem. We've been talking about war, COVID, especially now COVID, and right now, Ted Cruz is getting bent out of shape over a cartoon who's been around for 70 years, 60 something years. I can't do math, but probably older than him, and he's getting all bent out of shape. That is his main problem, is that show for 6-year-olds. I was really mad when I was doing this.
Fox News also covered it too and called Big Bird propaganda and agreed with Cruz. So that's crazy to me that a news organization can attack a fictional Sesame Street character, calling them propaganda. So
And he also said government propaganda. Like, how does Big Bird work for the White House now? Like, I'm confused.
He's a secret informant, I guess.
It's not
Lisa
just him.
Booth, who I think is she's like a Fox News contributor. Oh, what's up?
I was gonna say.
Sorry. Lisa Booth, who's like a Fox News contributor, she said that the Muppet was brainwashing children, and then a Trump advisor, Steve Cortez, called it evil propaganda. But both of these people have made false claims that children are not at risk for COVID-19, which is not the case. They are at risk. Their symptoms might be like less severe, but children getting the vaccine stops it from spreading through schools and to more people. So I just think it's really interesting that Fox News covered it and also agreed when like one of their consultants said that they're brainwashing children through a Muppet.
And they can't act like this is. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I also think it's kind of ridiculous that people are getting so triggered by this. Like, nobody's forcing your kids to watch Sesame Street or like look at Big Bird's tweets. Like, you're choosing to put this on for your kids. If you want to turn it off, you can turn it off. They're not brainwashing you.
Ted Cruz also has like so many problems like going on in his life, like him getting slandered, and his main concern right now, like I said earlier, is Big Bird getting vaccinated, tweeting out that he was vaccinated. He actually posted a tweet of a meme of somebody bursting through the door dressed as Big Bird and said like, "This is Big Bird once he got the vaccine" or something like that. And God,
I
just can't help but laugh.
That's what's crazy about it all. Because a lot of these like politicians that are against it are vaccinated themselves, which is.
Yeah, Ted Cruz is just such a joke at this point. I mean, he ignores his own constituents, and this is what he's doing with his time. If I was a Texan, I'd be disgusted.
Like I said earlier, it is satirical. And SNL actually did a skit about it already. So, when SNL covers it, it's a big joke, which is what Ted Cruz looks like right now. I think it's really interesting how, like, I don't know, there's so many reaches right now for anti-vaxxers. Like, Big Bird, immediately no. If Big Bird gets it, immediately no. Like, where's the logic? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Well, the other thing is, the segment's going to go right over these kids' heads. I mean, they're not going to pay attention to the fact that Big Bird got the vaccine. If they understand it, all right, maybe that's one thing, but they're not just going to. The decision for them to get vaxxed is still going to be up to the parents. So I don't understand what the problem is.
Like,
if anything, it'll comfort the kids whose parents are deciding that they want them to get the vaccine.
Or if they've already been vaccinated, they'll be like, "Oh, I did this." Kids who haven't been vaccinated are going to be like, "Mom, Dad, Big Bird got vaccinated, so I got to too."
Exactly.
They're like 4. Like,
I'm a little unclear. Did Big Bird say this? I know he tweeted, or his account tweeted it, but did he say it in a show too? Because if it was just on Twitter, like, these 4 and 6-year-olds are not going to see that. Like, they don't have Twitter.
Yeah, I think it was just on Twitter. That's a good point. I don't even think they had a segment.
When I was 6,
someone said he said he thinks it was on Sesame Street.
All right. Well,
even if it was, it's going over the kids' heads. So there's honestly no problem.
I was going to say, Ted Cruz and Lisa Booth are letting their kids on Twitter at the age of 5.
If you would have told me in like March 2019 that in a year and a half time, Big Bird and Ted Cruz would have beef, I would have said, you need to step 7 feet away from me. I just think this is funny that this is what the world has come to. Politicians having beef with Muppets. I think if there's nothing else to add, that's all we have for you tonight. Wanted to end on something a little bit lighter that we could all laugh about. Beef between Big Bird and a political figure. Who'd have thought? We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody. And thanks for watching.